Hi, I'm Frank Martin. In part one of this series, I'll talk about Dolby Atmos in a cinematic environment. Now we are going to see in consumer grade. I've done also two other videos, one which is how you enable special music on the Mac, Apple Music Spatial Audio on the Mac, and the another video is that how do you produce Atmos file from Logic Pro. So please check them out, and I'll see you just after this intro. So I'm Frank Martin, I'm a musician. I'm doing quadrophonic electronic music. It's ambient, it's experimental. Check on my channel the other video. All right, so we are talking about Dolby Atmos. So we saw that Dolby Atmos is 128 channels. 7.1.4 10 channels are reserved for what we call a bed, which is an environmental, and the rest of the 118 channels are objects that are moving in space and producing sound. So that's the Atmos master. We saw also that you need about 150 megabits of bandwidth to be able to carry all this audio information without compression. So the first step to bring it to consumer grade, you needed to reduce the bandwidth required. You need to reduce it seriously. So you needed to bring compression. The first one is Dolby True HD, which is a lossless compression. That's the one that you will find on DVDs and the Blu-ray. But there is another one, which is Dolby Digital Plus, which is lossy, which is also known as extended AC3. So that's the one that is generally used for consumer grade and for streaming. So if you look in Atmos, so that was the first one, compression. But you need to go further. So what they did further is that from 128 channels, they reduced it to 16 channels. So that's a lot of reduction. What you do in this 16 channel, you have the choice of having a bed of 5.1 or 7.1. 5.1 is usually the one which is used because a lot of consumer grade equipment have got 5.1 speaker system. When you go above stereo, then it's a 5.1. So a lot of people have got that. So it's usually issues. So you've got 5.1, so 6 channel, up to 16, you've got another 10 objects that you can describe. How is it encoded? You can see I was kind of looking into the Apple Music file on my Mac. It's encrypted, so you can't get the audio, but the headers are still there. So with FFmpeg, I was able to look at the headers, how it is, and you see that's the 5.1 encoding. The 5.1 encoding is everything. So the 128 objects have been reduced to 5.1, and then you've got metadata, which is called the joint object coding, which is associated that allow you to extract the object from this 5.1 mix. So that's interesting. You've got a backward compatibility with 5.1, and if your system understands the JOC, then you get a full Atmos with a 16 object. You can also use 7.1. In this case, you've got 8 objects already used, so you've got 8 more. How do you move from 128 channel to 16 channel? Well, you use some special things, like you snap object to the location of the speaker, you group them, you move object between one group to the other group. So like this, you have got less representation. So there's all this compression and optimization, which is done to bring the 128 to 16 channel. So whistle 5.1 is really cool. So that's why I see when I try to do enable it in Apple Music on my Mac, then it's cool. I've got a 5.1. I don't have the Atmos. Mac doesn't understand Atmos, or doesn't understand, the sound system doesn't understand more than 7.1, but at least I had the 5.1, and that was really cool. So we've seen that it's a 5.1 digital Dolby Digital Plus with a JOC, and we can express 5.1. So here, what do we need to do is, well, render this Atmos file to whatever the speaker that we have. We can have a 7.1.2, which is a roughly, bare minimum for Atmos. I think you can do also 5.1.2, but 7.1.2 is roughly the bare minimum. 7.1.4 or 5.1 and 2. So 5.1 is easy. It's already there most of the time in the format. And I was looking at Apple Music, and yes, it's a 5.1 stream in MP4 with audio only. There's no video channel. It's 48 kilohertz, and I think it's 24 bits. All right. Now we need to render that. So let me talk a bit of how us humans are locating the sound. So one part we see we've got a head, we've got two ears, and they are not located at the same place. So the first part is our brain and our ears are able to compute the time of arrival. So the sound will arrive at one ear before another ear, and that time of arrival is giving already a sense of direction. The other thing that is used is the phase. So you can calculate the difference of the phase between the two ears because the sound is not coming from the same location. That works well with low frequency because the length of the phase is bigger than the size of your head. In higher frequency, then it's very difficult because you don't know in which waveform, in which cycle you are. But that's not enough. What you need to do also is your ears, you see they've got a special shape and they basically act as a filter. And the brain is able to use all these filters that are happening on your ears to be able to recompose the sound. This is what we call a head-related transfer function. So we are able to build a head-related transfer function that say, well, if I've got a sound in this frequency coming from that location, here, how I need to represent it on the head, so how much delay I need to put it, what change in frequencies I need to do, what change in phase I need to do, change in volumes also. So you've got a head-related transfer function. However, this head-related transfer function, we never listen music in an anechoic chamber, means that there's no echo. So we are always in a room and there's always some echo. So you need to add binaural room impulse response. What does it mean? Well, if you're in a room, then there is a sound that is coming directly from the speaker. So you've got your speaker, sound is coming directly. That's direct sound. Then you've got earlier reflection. Like for instance, here you see the speaker, it will bounce on the window, come to me. It's an earlier reflection. And then you've got the late reflection. It bounce on the window, bounce on the wall, bounce back again, and come back. So with that, you can have a structure of your room. So with that, with the head-related transfer function, the RHTF, and the binaural room impulse response, then you can start to render your object-based sound format into something that would fit any speaker, any headset. And that's a part which is interesting. We can represent it like in a binaural format for headset with two speakers also. If you know exactly what's made and what's done, or in a 5.1 system or 7.1 or whatever the number of speakers that you have. The rendering is done after. In a standard stereo system, you've got a console, you're mixing, you're rendering it for specific to speaker. Here, you don't render it for the specific to speaker, you leave it in an object format, and it's up to the device to render it for the final disposition of your sound source. So here is Atmos. Here is the Atmos in a consumer grade. That's the one that we'll see in Apple Music. Now the question is that, did we need all this computation and fanciness to make this sound, or couldn't we have just done a different type of mastering and mixing? Is it the same and equivalent? I don't know. It's based on everybody's experience. What I know is that this is relatively recent, where we have got the computation, we've got the equipment, we've got the need with virtual reality, etc., to have music in space. So, for instance, we could do some improvement, like for instance, the HRTF. We say that, well, it's based on the shape of the ears, and everybody has got different ears. So, for instance, Sony and Creative Labs are solving some of this problem by asking you to take a picture of your ears, and then they look, okay, your ears look like these ears, which have got this HRTF. So they're able to bring a better suited HRTF depending on the shape of your ears, and so they've done calculation for different people. The other thing also, Apple Music, you don't know how the audio engineers work on the Atmos file. I've seen, especially for the older tracks, like I think there's a Beatles album, and they were released in quadraphonic or 5.1. So they just did a 5.1 mastering and then just converted in Atmos, where in that case you've got 5.1 and no object. For me, with quadraphonic, this is how I plan to release it in quadraphonic. I will release it with an Atmos file format, but basically it will be horizontal. There will be no object in space coming from a modular. If I do some other song, more producing, yes, I will start to move object a little bit more in space, but maybe they did the 5.1 because that's common. A lot of movie do that. And then they just made it, convert it in the Atmos file format and then release it to you. So here is a question: how does it work for you? How does it work on your system? It's an emotional experience. Usually you don't remember it except the experience that you had. You don't remember exactly that the sound was special, but you remember that this experience was better than a previous one. So where are we going? I think that it's cool that we're having an object-based format, which is a little bit universal and has a rendering and the capacity and a better understanding of how sound in space is working, then we'll get improvement. And the last thing is that spatial audio is a little bit more than Atmos rendering. Spatial audio from Apple also use head tracking, especially for movies. They want to make sure that the sound is coming from your device, your phone or your iPad. So if you move the head, the sound is still feeling coming. I don't know, it will work with audio. Maybe when you move your head, then the sound will be stabilized. Having this kind of changing while you change your head is also improving the location because you can hear the difference. So having a dynamic is improving your sense of space. So here we go. I hope you enjoyed this quick description of Dolby Atmos spatial audio, and yes, comparing it between the original stereo and the rendering of all this object base to finally a two-channel version. Many people will do that. Does it make a lot of difference? I don't know. It depends on people and how they feel about it. Also, moving from 128 object back to 16 is quite a bring down. But do we need 128 object for music? We'll see where this thing is going. But I'm really excited about it. At least there is spatial music. We are moving away from stereo. It took us many years to get audio, which is different than stereo. Thank you very much. I'm Frank Martin. If you like this, please subscribe, like it, see also the other video and how to technique on ambisonic, etc. And please listen to my music.